Hi guys, so in this video I'm just going to preview the two preseason games we had tonight. So first we had the Panthers losing to the Patriots. The Patriots on 17-3. So yeah, it's not a huge deal because he really cares about preseason records. Like that never means much. So first we'll start with the quarterbacks did. We'll start with the Panthers. First, Jake Plummer. He threw the most passes. He had 11 completions on 21 attempts for 86 yards, 4.1 yards for completion, zero touchdowns, zero picks. Obviously, I didn't know there any touchdowns because the Panthers in general didn't have any touchdowns. Then he took 5 sacks for 35 yards. So he did take some sacks. And then the backup behind him is Jake Luton. He had 7 completions and 9 attempts for 38 yards. He averaged 0.1 yards more than Plummer did per completion, but he also had 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. He didn't take a single sack, so he had better protection, or at least the Patriots had out there at that point weren't as good, but he still didn't do much. So yeah, like these guys are battling for who's going to be a potential number 3 quarterback because they got Bryce Young. They still got Anthony Dalton, but neither of them play in this game. Dalton's injured. I think Young's probably injured too, which is probably not in the play, but it doesn't really matter. It's on because it's preseason. So that's it for the Panthers quarterbacks. So next, let's go to the Patriots. I think they have 4 quarterbacks playing. They have Bailey Zappi. I feel like he's battling for him and Milton are battling for roster spots. And whoever doesn't make the roster between the two of them, they're not going to practice squad, or at least Patriots trying to get him on the practice squad. But so Zappi, he had 12 completions and 20 attempts for 108 yards. He averaged 5.4 yards of completion, 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. He did take 2 sacks for 20 yards. So he did all right. So like he is their main quarterback this game, but I kind of hope to like honestly he played less. He played a lot more than Joe Milton, so it kind of shows you. We'll see because like say that Joe Milton he had 4 completions and 6 attempts for 54 yards. He averaged 9 yards completion. He did throw. He was the only quarterback to throw a touchdown for Patriots, so he did do that. So yeah, he had a rating of 134.7. So he had decent, but it's obviously a really small sample size. Same with Drake May. He had 2 completions on 3 attempts or 19 yards. So yeah, like he had 0 touchdowns, 0 picks. There's no interceptions thrown in this game. So then he also Jacoby Brissett. He had 0 completions on 3 attempts. So yeah, rating for quarterbacks are so weird. Like he had 0 completions, but he doesn't have a 0 completion percentage. He should be 0, then you would think. But nope, it's at 39.6. None of those quarterbacks did much on either team, but it's preseason. So yeah. So that's it for the quarterbacks in each team. Next, let's go to running backs. First, for you Panthers, you had Mike Boone. He was their main guy. He had 8 carries or 34 yards, 0 touchdown. The long was 11 yards. And then if you look, he also had 3 catches for 13 yards, and his long catch was 7. So he had decent. He was their top weapon, like what he got rushing and receiving combined. But he didn't do much either, so it's like not a huge deal. But he had an okay game, but the running game didn't do much in general at all. Then behind him, we had Jaden Sheridan. He had 4 carries for 12 yards, 0 touchdowns. Obviously, allowing a 7. So yeah, and then Jonathan Mingo will get a rush. He had 1 carry for 6 yards. And obviously, as long as 6, he's only had 1 carry. Then behind him, he had Dylan Johnson. He had 2 carries for 6 yards, as long as it was a 4 yard carry. Then behind him, when your quarterback's got a couple rushes, he had 2 carries for 4 yards. So yeah, they didn't No, but no stats are very high because most players didn't play a lot. So yeah, like once you get further in preseason, more guys will play more consistently because more guys will be cut. But yeah, the Patriots rushing, you had Charles Jennings with 6 carries for 38 yards. He averaged 6.3 yards a carry, long of 20, so he had a pretty long one. I think that was the longest gain on the ground this game. And then behind him, you had Kevin Harris. He had 8 carries for 22 yards, 2.8 yards a carry. He had one touchdown, so he did have the other touchdown on the ground. So it's like, no, yeah. Then Joe Milton, one of the quarterbacks, he's a kind of a little bit of a dual threat guy. He had 5 carries for 22 yards, 4.4 yards a carry. And then for some reason they had Ramondre Stevenson get in there. Like I guess they just wanted to see how he would do, but why would he have him get 1 carry and no catches? Because like he's not in jeopardy of not making this roster. They had 1 carry for 11 yards. And Andrew Michael Hasty had 5 carries for 10 yards, line was 7, so he didn't do that much. He only averaged 2 yards a carry. But then another one of the quarterbacks got a rush for 6 yards and Billy Zappi. Then your top 2 running backs are most likely Stevenson and Gibson on the year. Gibson had 4 carries for 4 yards, so he didn't do much. But so yeah, so that's it for rushing. Next, let's go to receiving. Let's go Panthers first. First, you got Jordan Matthews. He had 3 receptions for 48 yards, so he had a decent game. He did average 16 yards a reception, which is good. But so like a lot of these guys, most of these guys that played like at top of the like the amount of yards they got as the stats, they're the ones battling most for rush spots more likely than not. Then you also got Amir Smith Marset. He had 4 receptions, 24 yards. He's more likely than not just to make the rest of the roster because of his special team, like his returning ability. He's not that good of a wideout. And then we got Jacob Hollister. He had 2 receptions for 13 yards, long of 7. He caught all of his targets. He only had 2. And then I already kind of mentioned Mike Boone for rushing. And behind him, we had Jaden Sheridan. He had 1 catch for 10 yards. So, yeah. And then you had Devin Tompkins. He also had 1 catch for 5 yards. And Felipe Franks, the former quarterback, 1 catch for 4 yards. Kind of didn't realize he switched from quarterback. I guess he did. Then you had Dylan Johnson, 1 catch for 3 yards. I don't know. I'll just stop mentioning these guys. The rest had 1, and then others had 0. Like 1 catches and 0. So like no point in mentioning them at this point. So now let's go to the Patriots. He had Keyshawn Booty. He had 3 catches for 53 yards. He'll probably have some role in their offense just as they don't have very good wideouts. So hopefully he'll step up and be a good target for May/Brissett. Just depends because Brissett's probably going to start the season out as the starter, but May will probably be the starter by the end of the year. Then you had a long gain of 38 by Jaquai Jackson. He had 1 catch for 38 yards and a touchdown. So he caught that touchdown from the Milton. So yeah, Milton has a good arm. He just isn't very accurate. So then you also had Jermichael Hasty for 2. He had 2 receptions for 16 yards. A lot of these guys are more just like a lot of these. Their top guys are mostly running backs. But then behind him, you had your high-end draft pick, and our guy hope he can like break out and have a good rookie year. But he was a little overdrafted for Washington. Jalen Polk, 3 catches for 14 yards. Then you had Antonio Gibson. He had 1 catch for 13. Then you had Jaheim Bell, another rookie, 1 catch for 11. Terrell Jennings, 2 catches for 11. And then Javon Baker, 2 catches for 11. Not on the rest of those guys. They really did a thing. So now just go to potential turnovers. Jack Plummer, the Panthers quarterback, did have 2 fumbles. He lost neither of them, thankfully, but he still did. Then Chandler Zavala, one of their offensive linemen, did recover the other one. Then Bailey Zappi, he lost a fumble. He recovered it, so there wasn't any turnovers in this game. So yeah. So now let's go to their defenses. First, you got Alex Cook. He had 6 total tackles, 5 solo, and then that's all he did. Then he also had Clinton Isabella. He had 6 total tackles, 4 solo. That's all he did. Then he had Deshaun Jameson. He had 4 solo tackles. That's all he did. He tackles he had 2 pass deflections. He had Nick Thurman, 4 total tackles, 3 solo. He had Monty Richardson, 4 total tackles, 2 solo. I'll go a lot more in depth on these guys like regular season starts. It's just most of these guys might not even make the roster. So then you had Iku Luita, 3 tackles, 3 solo. All of them are solo. 2 tackles for a loss, and 1 QB hit. So he did get after the quarterback. Then you had Tay Davis. He had 3 total tackles, 2 solo. He also had Dane Jackson, cornerback, total tackles, 2 solo. He also had Alumo Eli, 3 total tackles, 1 solo. And that's all he did. Then Trevor Wallace, 2 total tackles. Then he also had Chow Smith Wade, another corner, 2 total tackles. Then Lamar Jackson, another corner, 2 tackles, 1 solo. He had 2 pass breakups, excuse me. Then he had Jamie John Robinson, a safety, 2 tackles, 1 solo. Jamie Robinson, 2 tackles, 1 solo. Wait, sorry. Just said the same guy. Jackson Mitchell, 2 tackles, 1 solo. So yeah, like nobody else notable. Felipe Franks did have 1 tackle. It's kind of funny. Did play like most more notable guys after that they didn't really play much. So then let's go Patriots defense. You had Marcelo Dial. He had 5 total tackles, 4 solo. That's like Kristen Ellis. He had a good game. He had 5 total tackles, 3 solo, and 1 sack, and 1 tackle for loss. That's pretty. Like that's probably the best. That's the best I've ever been in defense so far. Then you also had Del Pettis, 5 total tackles, 2 solo. AJ Thomas, 4 total tackles. You had Joe Giles Harris, 4 total tackles, 3 solo, and 2 brass deflections. Then he has O'Shane Eximius, 4 total tackles, 2 solo, 1 sack, and 1 tackle for loss. So another guy had a good game. He had 2 QB hits, so he's still helping in this case. But I feel like he probably would have made the roster anyways. He's not ton in depth. We'll see. He had Jeremiah Farms. He had 4 total tackles, 2 solo, 1 sack, and 1 tackle for loss, and 1 QB hit. He had Jalen Hawkins, 3 total tackles, 1 solo. He had Azizi Heron, 3 total tackles, 1 solo. Steel Chambers, 3 total tackles, 1 solo. Sean Wade, he's a guy that has a decent chance of making it. Roster, 2 total tackles, 1 pass deflection. Then he had Dietrich Wise, he's another notable guy. He had 1 total tackle, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss. Yeah, Wycombe McMillan, he's a notable linebacker, 1 total tackle, so he didn't play much, but still. Got 2 guys that are most likely to make the roster, Norman Watts and Anthony Jennings. Each only had 1 tackle. That's it for like. Then they had Marco Wilson, another really kind of notable guy. He had 1 tackle, 1 total tackle. That's all he did. Then Mitchell Wilcox had to make a tackle with tight end. It's kind of funny when you see some of these offensive players having a tackle and potential turnovers. It's kind of funny. They go, hi, what are you doing there? Yeah, but yeah, that's it. No interceptions by either team. No picks thrown, so that's good for each quarterback. But then let's go to kick returns. First from Panthers, you got Deshaun Jameson. He had 2 returns, so he had the most, and he had 52 yards. So yeah, he had decent. Then he also had David Moore. He got 1 return for 29. Amir Smith Marset had 1 return for 19. So I think Amir Smith Marset's will be the best return out of those 3. We'll see. Then for the Patriots kick returns, he had David Wallies. He had 1 return for 24 yards. He also had Kevin Harris 1 return for 20 yards. Not a lot of returns in this game, but there's a new kickoff rule, so a lot of teams are kind of getting used to it. If they had a off season and stuff, it's still a lot different. So yeah, let's go punt returns. First, we'll start with the Panthers. Again, you got Amir Smith to start. He was your top punt returner. He had 2 returns for 12 yards. So yeah, there's a decent chance that'll help him make the roster. Then he had David Moore. He had 1 return for 7 yards. So yeah, wasn't much punt returns either. So now you got the Patriots. He had Davis Walls. He was your top returnage, yardage wise. He had 2 returns for 36 yards, allowing 23. Then they had KJ Osborne, former Vikings wide receiver they brought in this offseason. He had 1 return for 1 yard. Then another former Vikings wide receiver, Jalen Mager, had 1 return for negative 2 yards. That went well. Like, how did you go backwards to lose 2 yards on a return? That's not very good. So that's it for their returning. So now let's go to their kicking for each of them. You had for Panthers, you had Harrison Mavis. He made his 1 field goal. He had attempted, so he for 41 yards. Let's go to Patriots. He had Joey Sly make his 1 field goal attempt of 42. He didn't attempt any extra points. The guy who did, Chad Ryland, he had 0 field goal attempts, but he did make 2 extra points. So he's good there. So that's it for kickers. Now let's go to punters. First, you got the Panthers. He had Johnny Hacker. He had 10 punts for 400. He had averaged 46.4 punt yards a punt. That's pretty good. He had 1 touchback. And for Patriots, he had Bryce Behringer. He had 8 punts for 385 yards. He averaged 48.1 yards a punt. He had 1 touchback. He pinned 3 in the 20. His long punt was 56. Haker's long punt was 58. So Behringer had a good game of pinning them back, which is really what you hope from for a punter. Because, yeah, you're not expecting much. But yeah, that's it for this one. So now let's go to the Lions-Giants game. The Giants won 14-3. Let's go passing. Lions fan passer is Nate Sudfeld. He had 13 attempts for 24 yards. 24 attempts. He had 96 yards. He had 1 interception. Took 4 sacks. He has Hendon Hooker. He had 5 completions and 9 attempts for 36 yards. No touchdowns or picks. But he's also a leading rusher. He had 4 carries for 34 yards, long 16, so he's kind of funny there. So that's it for the Giants passing. Let's go Giants passing. Leading passer is Tommy DeVito. He had 8 completions on 15 attempts. He had 19 yards, no touchdowns, no picks. He also had Drew Lock. He had 4 completions on 10 attempts, 17 yards, with 1 pick, no touchdowns. Each of those quarterbacks took 1 sack. So yeah, those guys are competing for the backup quarterback job. So let's go to Russian. I already mentioned Hendon Hooker for the Lions. He also got Sione Vaki. He had 4 carries for 29 yards, allowing 15. He had Nate Sudfeld get a few carries. He had 3 carries for 14 yards. And then he also had Zonovan Knight, 6 carries for 12 yards. Craig Reynolds, he had 4 carries for 11 yards. All these running backs, he's the one that's for sure make the roster bar an injury to him. Then he also had Jake Funk with 4 carries for 9. Jamar Jefferson with 5 carries for 9 yards. So now let's go with Giants rushing. You had Deontay Miller, who's a rusher. He had 12 carries for 63 yards, 0 touchdowns. But Eric Gray had himself a good game. He's going to help himself make the roster, hopefully. He had 4 carries for 52 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. But he also had 4 catches for 46 yards. So, yeah, he almost had 100 total yards this game. So he had 2 touchdowns. Then he also had Tyrone Chasey Jr., 5 carries for 26. Drew Lock had 2 carries for 12. Tommy DeVito had 4 carries for 2. So he had a few carries, quarterbacks to get a few rushes in. So that's it for the rushing. Let's go to the receiving. First for the Lions, you got Isaiah Williams. He had 4 receptions for 35 yards. no touchdowns. Then you also had Donovan People-Jones. He had a big catch of 26 yards on one catch. Then you had Antoine Green, 3 catches for 13. He had James Mitchell, 1 catch for 11. Donovan Mike got in receiving, and our running back, and 2 carries for 10. 2 receptions for 10. You had Parker Heiss get 1 catch for 8. You had Shane Gilstra get 1 catch for 7. That's it for no mention of our running backs. None of these other guys receiving. None of these other guys are notable for the Lions. Then receiving, you had Eric Ray. I already mentioned him. You also had Tyree Jackson get 2 catches for 34. He had Allen Robinson get some catches. He did play a little bit. He had 1 catch for 9. You had your most likely starting tight end, Daniel Bellinger, had 1 catch for 7. Then you had Dante Miller get 2 catches for 7. You had Bryce Ford Wheaton, that's catch for 6. All those other guys never didn't get catch. You had Jalen Highley get 1 catch. He had 0 yards. So, yeah, that's it for receiving for each team. Now, for fumbles, you had Maurice Alexander. He had 1 fumble. He didn't lose it, though. Then these other guys, they just recovered it. Then on the Giants, he had Trey Herndon and Isaiah McKenzie both fumble the ball. Herndon did lose the ball. Like the Lions did get it. McKenzie, he recovered his own fumble. So that's it for fumbling. Let's go to the defenses. On the Lions, you got Malik Jefferson. He had 6 total tackles, 2 solo. You had Deron Gilbert, 4 total tackles, 1 pass deflection. You had Broderick Martin, 4 total tackles, 2 pass deflections. Mitchell Agude, 4 tackles. That's it for him. Brandon Joseph, he did decent. He had 3 tackles, 1 pass deflection. Jalen Reeves-Maiden even got in there. He had 3 total tackles. Lorraine Strickland, he had 3 total tackles. CJ Moore had 3 total tackles. Ennis Rakestraw, potential starting corner for them, had 3 tackles. He did get in there. He had Maurice Norris, 3 tackles. He had Isaac Okua, 2 total tackles, 1 pass deflection. And Nate Lynn get 2 total tackles, 1 sack, 1 test, 1 tackle for loss, and 2 pass deflections. So he had a good game there. So then you had Meek Robertson get 2 total tackles. He had 1 pass deflection. He had James Houston get 2 total tackles, and he had a sack. Then he had Pat O'Connor. He had 1 total tackle. He also had a sack, so I'll mention him in there. So that's it for the Lions. Defense, let's go to the Giants. He had Darian Beavers. He had 5 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss. You have Ovi Ogofia, 4 total tackles, 1 pass deflection. Matthew Adams, 4 total tackles. Then you had Christian Holmes, 4 total tackles. Then you had Boogie Basham had a pretty good game. He had 4 total tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, and 2 pass deflections, and 1 QB hit on top of that. He had Deontay Johnson, 4 total tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for loss, and 1 QB hit. He had Alex Johnson get 4 total tackles. You had Trey Hawkins for 3 total tackles, 1 pass deflection. Trey Herndon got a pass deflection and 3 total tackles. You had Elijah Chapman, 3 total tackles, 1 sack, 1 pass deflection, and 1 QB hit. Then you had Breon Borders, 2 total tackles. He had 1 pass deflection. He had Benton Wintley, 2 total tackles, 1 sack, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass breakup, and 2 QB hits. So he had himself a game. In Casey Rogers, 1 total tackle, 1 pass deflection, and 1 QB hit. So then that's it for their defense. Not any notable guys. So let's go to interception. Both games had 1 guy with interception. Detroit, you had Brandon Joseph get a pick. So you returned that for 20 yards. And the Giants, you had Trey Herndon get a pick. He returned that for 35 yards. Neither of them returned it for a touchdown. So that's it for that. Now let's go to returners. For the kick return for the Lions, he had Isaiah Williams, 2 returns for 56 yards. Then you also had Maurice Alexander. He got 1 return for 20. Then the Giants, you had Isaiah McKenzie. He only got 1 return for 26 yards. That's the only returner at all. Then punt returns for the Lions, he had Maurice Alexander. He had 2 returns. He had no yards, so he didn't do anything. For the Giants, he had Gunnar Olszewski, Three returns, 15 yards. He has Zach McKenzie, 2 returns, 14. Nair Azante, 1 return, 4 yards. And then that's it for that. For kicking, the Lions' only kicker, Jake Bates, he made his only field goal, 10 to 53 yards, so he had a long kick. Then for the Giants kicking, he had Graham Null. He did make his only extra point. Showed it Jude McKenzie. Neither of them attempted a field goal. The punting for the Lions, he had Jack Fox. He averaged 49.6 yards a punt. He pinned them back at the Giants back in 20 twice. He had a long of 62, which is good. Pretty big long. Now let's go to the Giants punting. You got Jamie Gilton. He averaged 45.6 yards of punts. He had one touchback. He did pin the Lions in the 20 4 times out of his 7 punts. So that's did pretty good. He had a long 60. So yeah, that's it for tonight's 2 preseason games. Thanks for watching, you guys. Hope you have a good night.